Hi everyone, Diana here with messages for your week of July the 22nd to the 28th. Before we get into the messages or predictions, I would like to just remind everyone that Mercury is going into retrograde this week. I believe it's the 26th. I'm not an astrologer by any means, but astrologers tell me that it's been kind of tough all month because Mars has been retrograde and some other major planets as well. And Mercury's been already playing havoc with me. Last week, I was a little late getting this video out to you. It took me 4 different tries on 2 different days to try to upload it to YouTube. So hopefully this week will go a little smoother, shall we say. You know, maybe we'll just tell Mercury, or we'll just say all that's going on right now in the U.S. and the world has to do with Mercury being in retrograde and all these other planets. If it weren't so heartbreaking and frightening for so many people, it would be laughable. And I want to say, let's laugh anyway. That's not to minimize the situation that the U.S. is in or has put the world in. I don't want to minimize that. What I do want to say, though, is so much laughter is needed in our world, as is joy and love. And the only way we're going to change our world is by changing ourselves and changing ourselves into beings of love. And love is laughter, enlightenment, lighten up. At the same time, we need to be aware of horrific things that are taking place and work to correct them, work to make them more humane and more loving. I remember, I've told you often, I'm 72, I'll be 73 in November, and no surgeries. The only surgery I had was oral surgery, and it was not a good experience. So I've tried to avoid surgeries if at all possible. And so far, I'm doing pretty good at that, so keep it up. Anyway, I'm old enough to remember the 50s during the Cold War between the U.S. and Russia. And during that time, we had to duck under our desk, the old-fashioned desk, where the seats were attached to the desk itself, to the top, and it was a whole row. And so we had to somehow duck under that. It wasn't easy. It wasn't comfortable. And like that's going to save us from a bomb, but it was the times. I also remember in the 50s, it came out, and like I say, I was still a girl then, but I was with a family that kept in touch with what was going on in the world. And we were hardline Republicans in my family in those days. And I was also raised in an evangelical household. But we were allowed to do things that perhaps other households weren't, because I was allowed to take dancing lessons and music lessons and didn't have to go to a Christian school. I'm not even sure they had them in those days. I think there were a few colleges around. But anyway, I divert. My Christian relatives tell me they love me almost in spite of myself these days, but that's another story. I remember that there were families, husbands and wives, that were from Russia, but spoke perfect English and infiltrated the suburbans, or they became suburbanites. And it was big scandals in those days that these people are Russian spies, and there were fiction stories about it, and there were true stories about it. I also remember all of that period moves into the mid-60s. When we talk about the 60s, we're actually talking about the late 60s and early 70s. So in that period, we had the civil rights movement, we had the anti-war movement, and then we had, on the heels of that, and almost at the same time, we had the feminine movement. So we had 3 major movements starting on right as the Cold War was winding down. what we're seeing now, and you've heard me say, what goes around comes around, that in the U.S. we think in a linear fashion, whereas many other cultures think in a circular fashion. We think in the U.S. that once we've done it, we should never have to do it again. And we think for the present. We think what's going on now. We kind of live for now. Other cultures plan long term. And as one of you said, look at all the women who are coming over from Russia to have babies in the U.S., which then gives those babies U.S. citizenship. All of this said. When I was a girl, the Soviet Union, Russia was part of the bigger bloc, the Soviet Union. When I was a full adult and I was working on a book for President Reagan's, one of his Commerce secretaries. And one of the things that I learned from him is that's when the wall was coming down. So I learned a lot from him, and that was a very interesting period of time. But one of the things he was concerned about is, are the people ready for a democracy? And are the people ready? He was trying to help them, as were many others, trying to help the Russians create a business structure so they could take care of themselves and support themselves. Because since, 1917, I believe what the revolution was, that Russia was then, it was no longer, well, I don't know that it ever was that people were taking care of themselves, but the government had a great deal more say-so in the lives of the people after Stalin and the revolution, etc., etc. Without giving too much of a history lesson here, I do think we need to understand history so we don't repeat it. Unfortunately, too many of our world leaders don't read history or don't look at history. And I always say history is in the stories, not necessarily in the books. Anyway, I give you this little bit of history because if we look at the history of the Soviet Union, and I want to tell you that I had a biophysicist, I believe she was, and her daughter from Russia stay with me. Again, I was full adult at this time, and they came through an exchange with a program. They came and stayed with me for about a week, or it wasn't a long stay at all. And one of the things I learned, the mother, very bright woman, but her daughter was the interpreter because the mother didn't speak English, or it was very broken, but the daughter spoke perfect, without an accent, English. I mean, she was, I would have thought she was born in the U.S. Wonderful young lady. She was, I think, 14, a young teen at the time. Anyway, I tell you this because my question to them was, what can I give you to take back for your family and your friends? And because of being a writer, they wanted paper and pens and pencils, pads of paper and pencils. And so I went out and filled up a big box full for them. And the daughter said, thank you. The mother said, more. We were getting ready to ship this back, and the mother said, more. And the daughter had the mother stop, and the daughter explain that in Russia, they couldn't get these supplies. And so they wanted to, it was too hard to get things. And the mother, who had grown up with this, without, at that time, what was working toward a free Russia, the mother was really desperate for things and had to stand in long lines, couldn't get paper, etc., etc. So the daughter was explaining that the mother's wanting more was coming out of that. Whereas the daughter was saying, but now we'll be more like, we'll have more products. We'll be able to have a democracy. We'll be more like the U.S. We have probably too much, many of us, and unfortunately there are still those who don't. And we need to change that. We need to even things out a bit. That said, the Russians probably, as a whole, many were not able to stay away or to keep a Putin from rising again. And make no mistake, this is not a man who commits a great deal of good in the world. This is a man who creates evil deeds. I won't say he's evil because I don't think inherently any of us are evil, but I do think we can commit deeds that are very evil. And I say the reason I don't think people are evil because I do believe that as a soul, as that pure spirit, there's not, evil doesn't exist in the pure form of spirit. That is just love. And you've heard me tell some stories about that, and some, like the Zoroastrian, ancient Zoroastrian religion, which is good and evil will fight each other till good wins, and good will win. We just don't know when. Now, all of that said, we knew the Helsinki summit was going to produce not what we would hope for. We knew it was going to be bad, if I put a judgment on it, that it was going to not be what those of us who are for peace and love would hope. Not be for those of us who want to defend the country of the U.S., want to defend America against Russian invasion, cyber invasion. And yet, even expecting what came out of that summit, I was shocked. I was shocked that an American president would stand in front of the world and first of all bring North Korea, bring Russia onto the world stage as an equal partner in front of the cameras, and then say that this dictator is right, our American intelligence is wrong. Okay. Well, I've said it's going to be a rough summer, and believe me, friends, it's going to get a little more upheaval. Let me rewrite that. I'm underplaying a little more upheaval. We're going to have a lot of upheaval, and this week we're going to see. There are more surprises that aren't surprises coming out this week. There are going to be more of the same. What we're expecting and hoping doesn't happen, but still happens. I'm still asking everyone, we must continue to hold our world in prayer, in divine light, in love. And for those of you who say, love doesn't stop bullets, love doesn't do anything, I'm sorry you don't know the love I know. Because love, if someone's shooting at me and I'm standing here, I have two choices. One, not to be standing here. And love will keep me from standing here. The other thing, and you've heard me talk about moving into moving from the third into the fourth or fifth dimension. That's happening more and more. And the bullets are coming from the third dimension. If someone's shooting a gun, it just won't be there. We might not even be aware that we're not there. For those of you whose hearts are hurting, and if you're not in a place of love, believe me, it is your heart that's hurting. And you're seeing only the unhappiness in the world. Believe me, there is so much happiness. Even amongst all this turmoil, all this anger, all of this upset, all of this horrificness. You know, we still have children at the border that must be reunited with their parents. We must continue to work on that. We must continue to add love to the world, because love is the most powerful emotion there is. I love the intercourse that was taking place, the dialogue that was taking place on my YouTube video. One of the women who was responding, her name is Juliet. And Juliet, I know personally, we're friends, and she's also in my year-long workshop, The Sacred Path, and she's been in other programs that I've given. So Juliet was able to, with humor and with good writing. Juliet's a writer. She's has a book out, Homeward Bound. She's a chemist and an attorney. I mean, this is a very bright woman, and she has struggled to move more and more into the spiritual self. And she will be the first person to say it's not easy. And she was able to, on one of the comments with a woman who's, says love sounds like children's play. Juliet was able to, with humor and potency, be able to say, no, it's much bigger than that. It's much stronger. And when the original writer said that, Diana, I make it sound so easy, Juliet said, no, she's never promised easy. Please get that. This is not easy work we're doing. We are trying, there's a lot of anger in the world today. There's huge anger in this country. And I want to tell you that this with the Russians has been going on for many, many, many years, but it's been so hidden and we forgot about it. It has to come out to save the republic, to save any form of democracy. That you've seen me say it, the pus has to come out so the wound can heal. And that's what's happening now. And Juliet, thank you. It is not easy stuff that we're doing. It is the most difficult work that you will ever do in your life, to stay in love, to come back to love every time you leave it. And believe me, when you look in the mirror, as long as someone's looking back, you will be doing the work. So enjoy it, praise it, have fun with it, because it's not easy. I don't think it's easy, and I've been doing this a very long time. So for those of you who are doing the work, thank you. Thank you, because you are adding to our world. And I remind everybody, love is an action verb. We saw that when we saw those young men, the soccer team in Thai, where the world came together. What a miracle to get them and their coach out with the loss of only one life to one of the rescuers. Love is not the easiest way, but it is the way our souls ask us to go. Sooner or later, we'll all take that path. Let's see what Philip has to say. And before I forget, thank you all for your comments. I really appreciate them. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. I am so grateful, and your comments inspire me. They tell me that what I say does have some meaning for you, and my life is devoted to service, to helping the world be a better place. This is my spirit guide, Philip. This is an oracle book, and every page has a different message. By the way, before I forget, before I see you next week, my latest book will be out. It's called Joy, The Art of Creating a Happy Life. So I hope it has 52 different processes or activities, practices that you can use. Excuse me. Different practices to use to make your life happier. So what we think, though, because this is left page or right page, so we just have to think of left page or right page, and we're going to get our message for the week. You ready? Thinking? You got it? All right, here we go. Here's where we're going to stop. Okay, I'm hearing left, but I always read both pages, but left is our message. All right. You must leave the known and travel through the unknown to return to the known. Excuse me. Let me read that again. You must leave the known and travel through the unknown to return to the known. You want to find joy, you want to find happiness. Be ready to make the trip. Is that easy? Oh, gosh. No. Is it worth it? Yes. One more time, right? You must leave the known and travel through the unknown to return to the known. That's our message. On the right, excuse me, it says, does not each artist paint a different picture even when many look at the same landscape? Let me read that again. Does not each artist paint a different picture even when many look at the same landscape? My friends, you and I can be looking outside and one of us sees rain. The other says, oh, darn, it's raining. The other one sees rain and says, oh, good, I don't have to water the garden today. You have a choice. You always have a choice as to how you experience life. Choose love. Not fear, not anger. Choose love. That's what will transform the world. Does that mean you never march on Washington? Of course you march on Washington, but you do so in love, not anger. Does that mean that you have to practice love? Yes. Maybe you have to hold the door for someone. Maybe you have to smile at the grocery clerk. Maybe you have to say hello. Or as the poet Mark Nepo reminds us, we might get our fingers cut when we're helping the other pick up the broken jar of mayonnaise. But to be a humanitarian, to stay in a place of love, all we have to do is help the other pick up a broken jar of mayonnaise. I love you, my friends. Thank you. Daisy was asleep through the whole thing, and she's right here with me in the office. So we thank you for being with us. We thank you for loving us. We thank you for telling your friends about our YouTube. And for those of you who asked for a private reading, just look below. There's my website. Just give me a call, and we'll get you scheduled. Thank you. Have a great week. Don't let what's happening in the world get you down. Don't be part of the anger. Be part of the love that's going to fix this. That's going to cure it. It's going to heal. I love you. Daisy loves you. So do all the kitties, domestic and wild. Thank you.